Welcome to part 3 of developing web apps with Python. In this part, we'll look at SQL. We'll go ahead and look at the gist that I showed earlier in part 1, and we won't actually because I think at this point, if you've watched part 1 and part 2, you're ready to go and start getting into your own app and start you're anxious for more knowledge and at a much faster rate. So what I want to do is just kind of run through some of the code that will be useful and not have to necessarily show what it does or type it out or anything like that. Just go over it and you would get the basic idea. But really what we want to do is demo the first part, which is the SQL part, because that's going to be kind of important. So in Mac, you can get to SQLite. We're going to use SQLite, which is a lighter version of SQL. Just by opening terminal, and if you are on a Windows machine, go to Google, type in SQLite 3, and then take some time to download the shell. You actually need the shell. It's a very small file. It's like 600K, and it should open on your desktop, or it should open on your computer, and it should be a shell program that looks something like the Microsoft command prompt, right? Windows command prompt. But if you're on a Mac, it's pretty easy. You just simply change directory to, let's say, desktop. And now that I'm there, let me scoot this over a little bit. And now that I'm on desktop, I can start SQLite 3, and I can say .open to create a database. So let's say .open users .db, no semicolon, hit enter, and you should get a little database file. Now, there is a lecture on databases, so you can look at databases to get more of a understanding of how databases work, and then of course look at documentation on SQLite to go deeper into it, and of course W3 schools to look at to understand SQL, the language itself. Knowing SQL is more important than knowing SQLite, but it's not a big transition from SQLite to SQL. So we've opened the database. I'm going to go ahead and create a table. So let's just say create table. We'll call the table users as well. And the table will have create table users. We're going to go ahead and say a user ID. And this will be our primary key. And we'll auto increment this, which will just auto increment. When we add a new user, it's going to be user 2, then user 3 automatically. We don't have to actually say this is user 1, user 2. So auto increment that. And oops, one more thing. This needs to be text. Oh no, you know what? This is going to be an integer. So this needs to be an integer, obviously. Primary key, auto increment. That's good. And then we'll that's one column. The next column we'll make user email, and that's going to be a text of type text, and that's good enough. And finally, we're going to have user password, and that's also going to be text. All right, so close the parentheses, semicolon to finish to end that table. Hit enter, and let's say .schema. .schema checks the schema or the design of your database, the columns that you have. There we go. We have a table called users, user ID, user email, user password. Now remember these from your database so that you can actually use these in your website. So once we have that and we have the table created, and it's empty, we can start adding things to we can start adding it to our website. But let's just go over this in case this is the first time you ever see this. This might have been too fast for you, so let's just break this down and explain what we've done here. So imagine a table. Imagine a document like a Microsoft Excel document that has tables, a table with columns and rows. So all we've done was we've created 3 columns. One's called user ID, one's called email, one's called password, and we declared a few things about each one. So these are like the attributes of each column. We said that this column will hold integers, that this will be our primary key, and that this will be it will auto increment, which we explained earlier. And then the user email column will be of type text, and the user password will be of type text. And then we ended the command here, and that created the table for us. And we can create more than one table. But that's enough for now. I mean, eventually you do want to go off and explore foreign keys and understand what a surrogate key is, what a natural key is, get more into normalization, obviously. So definitely go off and explore databases, but this is enough to get us started. So we'll go back and we'll upload this to our website now, this database. So let's go back to my site. And under the same file as your, or the same directory as your bottle app, you want to upload the users.db database. So upload that. And once you have that there, that's good, we're ready to go. Let's go back and let's start to add this data to our database. And let's just do something really quick. Our database is already safe. The empty version is online already. Let's go ahead and do something here. Let's do a command called a DML, data manipulation language command. And we're going to say select all from users. And there's, select all, what is our table's name? Select star from user, everything from users, and there's nothing there. So let's go ahead and insert into users some values, and the values will be we'll do null, which will auto increment, which will automatically put 1 into the first row, right? Because we don't have anything at the moment, so it's going to automatically assign a number. So null, and then I'll put let's put vic@vic.com. And then let's put a password of like 123, and then let's close it. And now select everything from users, and we should see that Vic went in there. If we go back, and I'm pressing up by the way to get these commands to come back. Insert into users. Let's do bob@bob.com. 123 password. Go back and select everything from users. You can see that it's actually working, and it's auto incrementing the primary key here, which is the user ID. So we want to actually have a sign up form in our website, and we actually want to have a we want to be able to sign up a user and then be able to log in with those credentials. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, let's go back and look at our bottle app, and let's look at the code for that, and let's understand what's happening here. So we already know we've already seen the SQL code. Take a screenshot of this, have a look at what we've done here, and keep this in mind. This is SQL or SQL-like code. Okay, we can actually write this inside of our bottle app. So let's go up and look at sign up, and let's see what we've done here. I'm going to grab this route and kind of break it down, because this one includes an avatar, which we're going to get to in a second. But for now, I just want to show what we've done here. So I'm actually going to take this, paste it, and discuss what we've done here. Here's the code. All right, so I have a sign up method post. You can see what's happening here. That means that I must have had a sign up form, right, somewhere on a website. I have a sign up form, and the post, the method is a post, and the action must be going to sign up, if you remember from part 2. And I'm going to go ahead and remove any encryptions, remove the formatting. And so I've grabbed the email from the form. Remember, the form must have had a name called email and must have had a name called password. I won't encrypt the password at this point because we're not going to do that. But I'll make a connection to my database. So here's where things get interesting, or here's where it gets relevant. We have now home, HTML, my site, and then users.db. So what I'll do here is I'll go and I'll say, connection. Okay, so first of all, I'm using something called SQLite. It's a library. I need to go back up. I need to import, not with bottle, but by itself, import SQLite 3. So now I'm ready to use SQLite 3. And I make a connection. This is a variable. You can call it C, whatever you want. Connection equals SQLite3.connect, and I connect to my database. So let me get this out of the way so we can see what's happening. I connect to my database, and my database in this case is Engage CS, and the database is users, right? Double check that. Yep, everything looks good. So users.db and home, Engage CS, my site, users.db. Perfect. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a cursor. So let's bring this code back, and let's see what that means. So a cursor is just your way to navigate around, just like this thing that's moving on my screen right now in a circle is a cursor. You have to have a way to move around your table, right? Your database, your table in your database needs to be. You can reference different parts of it. You can go to row 2, column 6. You can move around, and so a cursor will do that for you. So we're going to create a cursor. I call it mine cursor V, but I'm just going to call it cursor for the sake of the example. Or let's just say cursor is fine. Cursor and then connection.cursor. So use the variable that you had, use your connection variable that you created, and call a method called .cursor. Remember, a method, or not remember, but for the first time, I think you'll encounter this in Python. This is the first time we actually discuss it. .cursor or .get. Whenever you have a dot before something, this is called a method in Python. So we know a function like print has two parentheses after it. It's a keyword. A method has a dot before it, and it only works when it's attached to something else. So it's kind of worthless without having something to work on, right? So in this case, we are able to use the library request and then .forms.get, and so .get works, right? .connect would be worthless without us telling Python that we want to connect with SQLite, et cetera, et cetera. So we create a cursor. All right, so that's that part of the code. And now here comes the SQL part. So now we have our cursor, and we say cursor.execute. What do we want to actually do? Well, whatever's in this, whatever argument we put into here will be the execution. So we're going to say insert into users, which is the name of our table. Don't forget, our table's called users, and our database is called users. So don't get confused from that with that. We have users.db, and we also have users the table. So insert into users, email and password. Now these need to be the columns that you have in your database. So this isn't correct. I need to go back to my database and look at what my tables are called, or my columns are called. And my columns are called user ID, user email, and user password. So user, email, and user password. Now notice I didn't put a user ID. If you leave an auto increment alone in Python in this environment, it will automatically increment this user ID. So there's no need for me to specify it here. And then I'm going to say values question mark, and bring these in from a different area. This is going to help you prevent something called SQL injections, which you can learn about later. It's a very common technique for hacking anything that's SQL based. So this will prevent that from happening, or make it a lot harder for hackers to get into to do that on your website, on your website, web app. So insert into users, user email, user password. These are coming from our database, and then the values are going to come from here. So the values are email and not password hash, because that was an encrypted version of it, which we'll take later. You have email and password. We're going to bring those in. Make sure the parentheses look good. Everything's correct. We have that one for that one, and we have this one for that one. Okay, great. So we have that, and now we're going to commit to the connection. So we've made a connection. We want to commit to it, and then you also close everything. We're not going to close it because you don't need to at this point, but we would want to close it. The rest of this right here is just dealing with the image that we've uploaded. So let's leave that for now. We got some basic functionality happening. Let's see that it works. I'm just going to close it to be safe. So cursor.close. And then let's just make sure this actually works. And if we download our database and we have our data in our database, then we're good to go. So let's go back to contact. And we're going to change contact to sign up now. So I'm going to actually change, or you know what, I'm actually going to, so I don't confuse anyone, I'm going to go back to my site, or confuse myself. Let me go back and say signup.tpl. And we're going to create a sign up form. Call this one sign up. And let this match the names that we talked about earlier. So this will be sign up. Not very fancy. The design will be very fancy, but it will get the point across. And then we said here it was sign up. Was the route method post? That's fine. Email is fine. We got email coming from name, and then we need to have password coming from the name as well. So just let me change this one instead. So PW is what we're taking from there. Okay, so that's good. We've connected to our database. Okay, great. So if everything looks good, I'm going to return you've been signed up. Just return a quick string that says you've been signed up. I'll remove the contact for now, so we can have just as little code as possible. I'll refresh, and we don't have a route that lets us go to our sign up page, do we? We don't actually have a route that just takes us to our sign up page. So let's go and create one called sign up. And this will take us to the sign up template, right? This will be our sign up route, but this will be our sign up template. Post route, this will be our sign up template. Okay, so let's go back to sign up, and we should have a form there. We should have a form, sign up, save, refresh. It's pulling, sign up. Let's see what's happening. Let's try it again. Okay, good. So we have a sign up form. I'm going to say something different, something totally different than these two, so you can see that it's actually working. Let's just say Emily@emily.com and then 1, 2, 3. Hit submit. You've been signed up. Let's see if that's true. So let's go back to our site and let's download our database. Let me remove this one. Delete that one. Show in Finder. Move it onto the database, onto the desktop. Go back and try to open users.db, and then select everything from users, and we have one Emily@emily.com 1, 2, 3. So our database is working. This is actually true, and we have been signed up. Great. So that's the sign up route. Nice and straightforward. We're going to move faster little by. We're going to start moving faster. I want to just see a demo for this one. Let's do the demo for the login, and then let's go from there. So sign in has basically the same kind of functionality, except you're doing the opposite. You're checking that things are actually correct. So let's go back and let's do. So let's go back, grab the sign up. A little bit of work, but it will pay off. And let's go and create a new route called login or sign in. Signin.tpl. We'll paste it. And by the way, with the sign up, having just one password field wasn't a good idea, right? You would want to have 2 password fields. And I'll show you that in this final version here. So this is kind of like a working version or a more user-friendly version, very quick and simple. So you have a sign-in area, no account, sign up here. Notice the route takes you to sign up, email, password, password confirm. Remember that when you design, this is just a front-end thing. We are doing a little bit of front-end, so let's go over it. Remember when you design, you want to keep it as simple as possible in the beginning. So before I go off and add a background to this, I want to make sure that this is what I wanted. So in this case, I wanted to have this always centered. So no matter what happens, I always wanted it to be centered, right? And I checked it on mobile, and I checked it on everything to make sure that it was user-friendly. And so you want to start with that, and then when you have everything working for you and you're happy with the way it works, the functionality, then you can go off and finish your front end. So I recommend you get the functionality up, make sure it's nice. Make sure it's extremely functional. It works across different browsers and devices, and then once you have that working, then you can go and do more design on your website. So I want to mention that, and that reminds me to go over something called media queries. So I'll make a note of this, and I'll cover that before we end this last lecture. Okay, so now that we have the route, we have a sign-in route created. Let's go ahead and finish it. So action is sign in. We're going to create a new route. The title of this page is sign in, and then we have an email and password. And then instead of saying value submit, we're going to say value sign in. Okay. So we have that. We have the password. Okay, great. So we can keep all this. We can keep all of this stuff the same. Doesn't need to change. And let's go and work on our login form. So now we have a route, and the route will be sign in, because remember we're targeting sign in as our action. And don't forget, we always need a route to get to our actual form. So let's do that before we forget. Let's put the actual route, sign in, and that returns the sign in route, or TPL. And then we have sign in, we have the method post. Okay, we don't need to do any encryption. We get the email, we get the PW, the password, and we make our connection. Our connection is going to be the same connection as that we had here, so we can just copy and paste this, and we create our cursor. Okay, and now here comes some of the, here comes more SQL. So we said select, so cursor.execute, right? Select from account where the user email is the email that the users put in. Okay, so select from account where the user's email is the email that the users put in. So it's going to find that row that has the user's email. Okay, once it finds it, here comes some more Python for us. Let's go ahead and look at what we've done here. So I created a variable called row and said cursor.fetch1. So what fetch1 does, let's say you have a row that says it's just one, it's vic@vic.com, and the password is 123, right? That's a row. So what happens was it selected this row, and then let's just put another example here. Let's say bob@bob.com, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what happens was it found the row. So I said select from account, right, where user email is email. So it grabbed this row, and what we've done with fetch one is with our cursor, we said fetch one. That means grab the entire row, right? Grab the entire row. We have another method called fetch all, which will grab that row and everything after it, which might be beneficial to spit out information, let's say for someone's post or someone put comments or something like that. But for now, fetch one does the job. It grabs the entire row, and it breaks it into what we call in Python a tuple. So let me stop here for a second, and let's go back to Python. This is how we want to keep doing it. I want to make the Python practical. And every time we learn a new concept, it's something you're actually going to go back and use. So let this load, and then in Python we want to look at something called a list or an array. Okay, very very important in computer science. And then let's talk about what a tuple or a tuple is. So a list is something like this. We had name equals Victor. You remember that? I could make a list called names and say that names has Victor, names has Bob, and names has Emily. Okay, so now that I have that, let's look at something called indexing to understand what's happening with names. So if I ask for the 0 index of name, let me print that. Print the 0 index of name. Notice how I grab the index. Each one of these is an index. When something can be divided into different parts, it's called an index. And so this string is actually divided into 6 different indices. And because Python is a 0-based index language, it starts with 0. The indices start with 0. So if I print name, I get the 0 index, I get V. If I print the 5th index, I will get R. And if I can go backwards, I can print the -1 index. It goes back around and it gives me R. Right? So that's in a string. I can do the same thing with names. I can say print names, and now give me the 0 index of names, and watch what happens. Now what I'll get Victor. So in this case, it broke it into indices, but each one of these is an index, right? And you can do the same exact thing, go back and do -1. All right, so that's called a list. And the thing about a list is that a list is extremely important as a data type, because what it does is it takes information. It allows you to take a lot of information, put it into a sorted format, and then use that format however you want. So for example, maybe when you sign up for Google or for Gmail, you're putting in all this information in this format, right, top to bottom. But then what happens is it might take that information and put it into an array, and then spit that array into, or dump that array into a database, for example. So indices indexing is very important, and knowing what an array is. An array can be changed. So I can actually add, so I could say, for example, names.append, I'm going to append John to the array. And now if I print names, watch what happens. So I'm able to append John to the array. All right? So an array is mutable. It means it can be changed. In Python, when you have just normal brackets, not square brackets, that means that it's now a tuple or a tuple, pronounced 2 different ways, tuple or tuple, and the tuple will be immutable. You cannot change it. Okay, and there's benefits to tuples, obviously. So what happens here, so now that that's understood, definitely don't leave it at that. Go off and practice arrays, do some more problems and programs with arrays. But now you know that row is holding a tuple, and it's holding 1 as an index, then Vic, at vic.com, and then 1, 2, 3. So if I asked for the 0 index of row, what would I get? I would get 1. If I asked for the -1 index, what would I get? The password 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. So we see what's happening with row. And now what I'll do with row is I'll say, here's a control statement. If row, now this is the hashed version of it. There's no need to have all of this stuff. So let's just say, let's erase that. Now let's try some logic here. I'm going to say, so basically what happens is we took that information, we put it into an array. Now, one of two things happen. Either there's something in row because it found the email, or there's nothing in row, right? And it didn't find the email. So I'm going to say if row is equal to none, right? If row is equal to none, if there's nothing in row, then print user not found, which makes sense, right? Because if the user has not been found, I mean, if row is empty, that means that that nothing was collected, then the user wasn't found. Otherwise, we can go ahead and check the password for it. Okay, so we have if row is equal to none, return user not found. Else, we're going to return, we're going to say welcome. And we could put a template here and we could say welcome the email. Now, this should work, but what about the email or the password? So we removed the encryption code that we had. So we have to go back and fix this select from account. So select from account where user email is equal to something and user pass word, I think that's what we called it, right, in our database, password is equal to something as well. So we pass in email and we pass in password. We check these two things. Again, if none of those are found, it's going to go and look at, it's going to find the row to be empty, and it's going to say if row is equal to none, if row is equal to none, user is not found, else return welcome. So let's see if this works. Let's remove this other code here, and let's save it, and let's run it, and actually see if our website's working. So we go back, and we do sign up. We go back and look what we did for sign up. We did Emily@Emily.com, so we sign up is okay. Let's go back to sign in now. And let's see what happens. We say Emily@Emily.com 1 2 3, and we sign in, and we get an error. So that's okay. So we go and look at our log file, and we find out what's happening. So I said select from account. Do we have a table called account? No, we don't. We have a table called users. So because we copied and pasted some code, didn't work. But let's try it again. So let's go back. Let's try sign in again. And let's say Emily@Emily.com 1 2 3, and it says welcome. So let's see if this is actually working. Let's say Vic@Vic.com 1 2 3. It says user not found. So this is actually working. This is actually going into our database and looking. And let's try now sign up, and let's go and do something like hello@gmail.com 1 2 3. Sign up. Great, you've been signed up. We should be redirected to the sign-in page. I'll show you how to redirect in a second. And then sign in, we should change this to sign in, right? Sign in will be, let's do that now, so for the sake of, these are the things that if you don't fix immediately, I mean, of course, you would not want to have a site like this, but I mean, when you do the bare bones site, you want to make sure that you actually fix these little things at the right time, right? So let's go back, sign in, okay? And then we said hello@gmail.com 1 2 3. Welcome. So this is working. This is great. So now we have a sign up route and we have a sign in route. And this is working. And hopefully you've understood a lot more Python from these two examples. So now let's go back and look at our gist and see what we are kind of not missing and just fill in some gaps and find out what we're doing. Let's talk about the avatar. The avatar is pretty interesting. So now we have, let's go back to this site that looks a little bit better. And you'll notice I have a nice link to the sign in, sign up. You should always have that. And I have a form that looks a lot better than this form. So what did I do? Did I just go off and create this on my own? And no, I didn't. I use a library. The benefits of libraries are there's a lot of benefits, but the main benefit is that it's already been tested. So just like we talked about testing the bare bones site and making sure that it works. You also want to that's just you doing it, right? So imagine something like this, pure CSS, which has been used by a lot of different developers, a lot of programmers, and they've already tested it out. They've already worked out the bugs. Pure CSS has already worked out the bugs from a library like this. So using a form like this is good because you're able to reduce all the errors that might happen if you try to create your form. So if you try to create this with some CSS, you might do it, but it might take you a lot longer than just going and grabbing. First, you need the link to their style sheet, and then you just need their form. So all I did was just take a form and modify it a little bit. So check out libraries like that. And so once you've done that, then I have an email, a password, confirm password. So what have I done here with the file? So let's examine that code. It's actually pretty easy. First thing I did was in my site, I created a new directory. Now, before we get into directories, let's go back and set up a static directory. So let's go to web, and we're going to create what we call a static directory. So what I mean by static directory is this. Let me open a new text edit and show you what I mean. So let's say we have a file on our website, right? So the file it might be under home/users/this/that/that, and then finally you have the image.jpg, right? Whatever the image is. All right, so you want to reduce in web design. You want to reduce all of this by using something called static, a static directory. So you want to call static, and then just be able to call either something from CSS or something from your images, etc. So you want to go ahead and create that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go off to Files, keep the web open, go back to Files, go to My Site, and create a directory called Assets. Okay, and under Assets, you're going to create a directory called Images. Okay, and then you want to go back to Assets, and you want to create a directory called CSS. And you want to go back to Assets after that, and also create a directory called JS or resources or whatever's going to hold your JavaScript. So now we have images, CSS, and JS nicely organized under Assets, but we don't want to call home/this/that every time. So we go back to web and we create a static directory. So we call it static /static/, and the path will be home, just like we've been calling for the database and everything else. Home. Let's go back and look at what we've done. Home, engage CS, my site. Okay, so home. Did I lose it? Yeah. Home, engage CS, my site / and then you want to call your assets folder, right? /. And there you go. So now that directory will be replaced with static. So what do I mean? So let's go back to Assets, let's go to Images, and let me upload a new image, right? So let me go and upload a file. Just grab any image from Pictures. Let's grab this image, okay? And let it upload, let it do its thing. It's 1.png, okay? So it's called 1.png. So I'll go back to let's just say sign in, any page, and say image, src, image source. Remember, it's an attribute, and we're going to call /static/ remember what we've called here. We're not going to what we've called it. We're not going to say home, engage CS, my site, assets. It's just assets and then images. So instead of saying assets, you would say static, and then you would call images. So /static images, and then it was called 1.png, and there you go. So now if I save this and I run it, and I go back to sign in, I should have a page that has the image on it. And there we go. There we go. It works. Okay, so we have set up our static directory, our static files. We're good to go. And now what we can do is we can go and create under images. Let's make one called avatars, which is kind of like going to hold avatars. If you Google an avatar, you can see what I mean by avatar. It's just a little icon that, not the image, avatar icon. All right, one of these things. These are avatars. It's just a little image about yourself. These are pretty cool. You can have some default ones, or you can have the user actually upload their own. So, so that's an avatar. So I'm going to create a directory called avatars, and we're going to store all the users' avatars in there. Okay. Let me go back to images and delete this image so I don't clog up the directory. Okay, so now we have that. So let's examine the code. Let's see what we've done. Well, first of all, if you want to use files in your bottle site, you need to import something called OS. And OS is a very powerful module. It comes with Python, built in with Python, but you have to import it. And it allows you to work with files, directories. You can open files, you can write to them, and create text files and all of this good stuff, or log files. So we need to have OS. Okay, once we have OS, then what we've done here is, and I'll zoom in on this. Okay, we forget the password hash, forget the encryptions right now. Ignore this. This is where we want to start. So I created a variable called avatar, and I grabbed the file from the form. So if you look at the form. If you view the source for this page, you're going to see a form, and the form has an input, and it also has a, right here, the input, and the ID is upload avatar, the type is file, and the name is data. So the type is file, name is data. Remember in your form, or know this know that in your form, when you want to upload files, you need to put this attribute which allows you to encode it. So just remember, this is going to be very important. Notice I have the method post, I have the signup, I have the pure CSS happening, but I also have the encryption, right? The encoding, and then I have the type as file and the name as data. Now the name can be anything you want, but keep note of this name data, because right here we say request.files.data. So with request.files.data, we were able to get the avatar, and so let's get started. That's what we've done here. So I created a variable called file name, and by saying avatar.filename, so by using .filename, I'm able to get the actual file name out of the file. So let's say the file was called bob.jpg. Okay, so bob.jpg is going to go into file name. And what I did was I created two variables here: file name without extension, and then the extension. And then using the OS module, os.path.splitText, what this does is it takes the argument, whatever argument you've put into it, which is the file name, which is bob.jpg, and it splits it. It splits into two parts. It splits it into the actual name itself and then the JPEG. So let's have a look at what happened here. So file name, let's say it was bob. The user uploaded bob.jpg, right? And so by using this line of code, what I've done is I've specified two variables. So two variables will be used here, and the result of this will go. The split will. Part of it will go into file name without extension, and part of it will go into ext. Okay, so what will happen is file without extension will become bob, right? And then ext will become .jpg. So I was able to using this code, we're able to break up the name into an extension, so we can identify the extension and also grab the file name. Why do we do this? Because we can check. If ext is not in allowed formats, what are the allowed formats? I declared them above. So the declared formats in an array will be .png, .jpg, and .jpeg. If it's not in it, if ext is not in that array, then return the avatar can only be a certain format, right? And that's another good code for you right there, not in an array. Otherwise, and then what do we do here? Okay, so what I've done here is I map the file name. So I want the name to automatically go into the database based on the user's user ID. So this is just an example of it, but actually when it's actually live, the way to do it would be with the database. So let me explain what I've done here. File name, mapped file name, just a variable, and equals 1 plus a string extension. So actually what you want to do is you actually want to get the user ID of the user that is logging in. So let's go back and use that example of 1vic@vic.com and 123, right? So when using some SQL, we can actually get, remember we can get row, right? And we know that row would hold 1 as a 0 index, this as a first index, and this as a second index. So if we grabbed row 0 and we assigned it to a variable, let's say number equals row 0, that would give us the number of the user. And so what we could do is we can override bob.jpg that Bob uploaded, right, when he signed up, and we can override that so that it becomes 1.jpg. And so what I've done here is I said mapped file name is equal to 1. This would be the user ID, right, plus the string version, we talked about string, of extension. So now it became 1.jpg. So Bob became 1.jpg. If that doesn't make sense, rewind, keep listening to that until that actually makes sense. And that's just one way of doing it, right? Just the one way that I chose to do it. And then otherwise everything else is okay. File path, create a file path. Notice my file path, I call it not with static, but with home v Columbia, or in this case, engage CS, etc. And then I called avatars, and I used something from OS called .save. So avatar.save. Remember, avatar is the name of our file, right? I mean, it's the actual file that we've taken. Take avatar and save it into the file path plus the file name, and overwrite is true. So just in case, so before we do overwrite, let's just explain this. File path becomes this plus the mapped file name, which is currently 1.jpg. So add them all together, and you get this. This is what you actually get. This is what it's actually going to store it in. or as, right? So it stores it. And then override equals true is just an argument that will, in case the file is already there, it will overwrite it, right? And if everything's okay, then return the template. And all I did here was I just returned the template, but I put in some parameters. So file name was file name, extension was extension, and all I'm doing here is I'm just spitting out information to show that it actually works. So let's take this code, now that we have understood this, let's take this code and let's put it in. We don't need all this other stuff. We just need the avatar code. Let's go back and do our sign up. We don't need the close right here, and let's go ahead and see if that works. We have everything working. Everything should be fine except for the engage CS part, my site assets, we said images, avatars, we've already made that. We have the override equals true. Okay, so all we're missing now is we're missing, make sure we have OS. All we're missing now is we're missing the actual form on our web page. So what I'll do is here, I'll just go to this page, I'll view the source, I'll copy and paste it, I'll go to sign up, and I'll paste it in there, right? With all the styling that we had from the other page. So let's go in here, let's paste it. Everything else looks good. It's going to our sign up route, which is great. It has our email, it has our password, confirm password. We're not going to do that in this example, and that's good. That's good to go. So let's save it. Let's refresh it, and let's go to our sign up. And it should look something like our Columbia one. And I'll say v. Let's just go ahead and say 123@123.com. Password is 123. Let's choose a file. This is going to be a small avatar. Let's choose, this is 2 megabytes, kind of big. Let's choose a small one. This is 3K. This is perfect. So let's choose this empty file, and let's hit sign up. It may or may not work. Okay, you've been signed up. Perfect. We don't want to save our password. And let's see what happens. So let's go back to images, and let's go back to avatars, and let's see if it went in there. It didn't go in there. So assets, images, avatars, something didn't work out. So let's go back. It wasn't an error, so it seems like some things worked. I think our code might be off a little bit. So avatars, request.files, avatar file name, we've taken that. Oh, okay. Email and PW. Let's make sure that that was correct. Email and name was password. So that might be the problem. Let's try that again. There might be another error that we're not seeing here. Sign up, that's fine. Let's try it again. Sign up, refresh. Let's do 123@123.com. Password is 123. Let's grab that same file. Sign up. You've been signed up. Okay, but has it saved our file? Well, you know what? Actually, there's a problem because it shouldn't say you've been signed up. It should return this. So what is happening here? Do we have, oh, you know what? Let me remove this. Save this. That was our problem, I think. Let's go back. I like to debug live so you guys can you know, see the real world. That's how it is when you code, right? So we debug live, we get it to work together. 123@123.com. Let's grab the A again, and let's sign up. Okay, so now this is better. An error is better than not knowing what's happening. Allowed formats is not defined. Nice, easy error, because we forgot to define, I'm going to say we, but I forgot to define allowed formats, right? We don't have that. It doesn't know what allowed formats is. So put that in your code, save it, refresh, and let's try it again. Let's go back to sign up. Let's try 123@123.com. Password 123. Choose any file. We want a.jpg. Hopefully it will work. Error again, no problem. Let's check out what's going on. Allowed formats is not defined. Okay, so silly error from my part. It's right here. The error is right here. It says my site profile not found. So something here is just the template is not even showing up. So I don't even have this template. So what I'll do is I don't need to even return this information. I'll just say return. Let's just say return avatar added successfully, and look at the gist when you get a chance to go ahead and see what I did there with returning the file name. So if you have a template called profile, you can put in some parameters like file name, and all it said here was it said something like let me show you. I can actually show you live. So okay, 1, 2, 3. Choose file A, and then when you sign up, you should get successfully uploaded a PNG with extension PNG and name A. Rename the file to 1.jpg. So I put that on the template itself in a paragraph. This is the rendered version, but you can see the what happened there. But basically, all we're going to do here is just return avatar added successfully and see if it actually works. So let me save. Let me refresh. I think avatars have been added. Yeah. So avatars have been added. It's been working. So let me delete that one. And let's see it again live, working hopefully. So bob@bob.com, 1, 2, 3, choose a file. Don't forget we're adding a.png, it should rename it. Hit sign up, avatar added successfully. Okay, and that user has been added. And now if we go back to avatars and refresh it, we find that that same image now, that 3K image is now called 1.png. All right, so there's a demo of that. Should make sense. Going back to our gist, that's all that's doing. Encryption, all we did with encryption was we used a hashing library called, where is it, PBKDF2. And what it does is it creates, whenever you sign up a user, you can hash the password, you can make the password, so you can make, for example, the password 123 look like a bunch of gibberish. And then if someone signs up with 123 again, it looks like more gibberish. But what's cool about this library is that when you go to sign in, it can still identify, even though the password is different, it can still identify the password even though each 1, 2, 3 is different, for example, right? So this is pretty cool. This means that we're able to encrypt our database, and if you don't encrypt your database, obviously when someone opens it up, they'll find the passwords just as they are, and that's a problem. So you want to encrypt it so that when you sign up a user, it becomes a bunch of random characters. So I'll have you explore that, but let me just go over the basics here. From PBKDF2 import crypt, okay, and when you go to sign up a user, watch the difference now. Now we have the password and everything as normal, but I created a variable called password hash equals crypt. So I'm crypting the password. The password that I took from the user, I am encrypting it. This is wrong. It shouldn't be C password. It should be password, right? So I crypt the password. I encrypt it, and then I do the same connection that we did earlier. Do the same cursor. Do the same connection, cursor creation. Do the same execution, but except here, instead of passing in the normal password, you'll pass in the password, the hashed password. Pretty straightforward. Commit to that. Close it. You're done. Easy. Now in the sign in, almost the same kind of thing, except now when you connect and you select from a user. From an account, you're only taking the user email. Once you have the user email, you want just that. Remember, what is 1? So we have 0, 1, and 2. So 0 is the user ID. If this has 3 columns, which this one did, and you have 1 as the email, and you have 2 as the password. So row 1 will be our email. So no, I'm sorry. Row 1 will be our password. Because, yes, okay. In this example, I only had 2 columns. Okay, so in this example, I only had 2 columns. So if your password is the 3rd row, or the 3rd column, I'm sorry, then this would be the 2nd index, right? And if your password was, in this case, I only had 2 columns, it's in the first index, right? So get the password. Right, the password hash, and then if password hash is not equal to use crypt again, pass in the original password that the user entered. Again, the CE password is not correct. It should be, let me just go ahead and take this and rewrite it because it's just going to be confusing. So get your email, get your password, connect, right, create a cursor, execute, only get the user email this time, not the password. Get the get the row. Password hash is equal to row, and then grab the 2nd index in your case, or 1 index in this case. So let's do 2. And then if password hash is not equal to crypt password, the original password, bring that in, and the password hash, bring those 2 in for comparison. If they don't, then I've passed in some parameters. in a flash message. Remember, a flash message is the message that pops in and pops out. You can explore that. I'll let you explore that. It's a CSS thing. You can have a message pop in and pop out, and then I've just said that it's an invalid email or password, it's an error, and then I return the template based on that, on those parameters. Otherwise, we created a session, which we'll get into next, and we returned the admin area. Okay, so you just return the template admin and they're in. All right, so that's the password hash. I'll let you explore that. I hope that made sense. It was kind of a shoddy explanation, but you know, hopefully you got the big idea from that. And let's do the last part of this, which is sessions, and that should get you off and running for your own app and to go off and do some pretty cool things. So let's look at the session creation that I did. First of all, we have to bring in Beaker middleware. We have to bring in some kind of middleware, some kind of library that can help us manage our sessions. And what is a session? So a session is, if I go to Gmail right now, hit gmail.com and I hit enter, I'm logged in already. It knows that I'm logged in. That's a session. So when I logged in originally, it created a session, and the session will last for 400 seconds, or it could be an infinite. And what happens is it installs a cookie on my system, and the cookie has some information in it. And you can use that cookie. You can put any information you want in that cookie. You can put a user's name, a user's language. You can put whatever you want in there, and then use that cookie to spit back information about the user, or to collect information about the user. And that's why websites now are warning you about cookies all the time. So what we're doing is we're actually going to install a cookie when we log in with some information, and just for the example, we're going to use whether the session is active or expired. That's all we want in the cookie. We don't want to store names or emails or anything. Although I'll show you how to do that if you want to do that. So we need to have a way to manage that. And so what we have is something called beaker.middleware in Bottle that can do that for us, but we have to actually install it, and it's a huge file. So the best way to do it is to go back to my site. Let me stay here. Let me save for a second. Let me go back to my site, and we want to install it here. We want to have a folder called Beaker. Now Beaker has a lot of content, so let me download it, and then once I download it, we can then look at how we can install it. Okay, so I have the original Beaker file. What I'll do is I'll upload it to the main directory here, and then I'll use what you call a bash to actually unzip this file into the main directory. So let's open up a bash here, bash console, and I'm just going to say unzip beaker.zip. So let it do its thing. Okay, loading. Okay, good. So unzip beaker.zip. Hit enter. You should see all these things happening. Go back, refresh this My Site area, and you should find that Beaker's installed. Inside of Beaker, you should have a lot of different files. Don't worry about those right now. We're good to go. Okay. So now we can go back to our site, and now we can install under the bottle. We don't need the beaker.zip anymore. Under Bottle app, in the Bottle app, we can go ahead and bring in our import. Now this import will work, and we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to bring in these what we call session options, and all I'm doing here is just creating the options for the session. So memory you don't need to worry about right now, but cookie expires in 400 seconds. So let's just remember this. Let's just keep it nice and simple for now. We're creating a session with the cookie expiring in 400 seconds. Okay, so when the cookie is installed, it lasts for 400 seconds. All right, so once we have that, let's go and see what happens when we actually sign in. So when we sign in, we don't need to have the password hashed. We're not doing that right now, so we just say if, let's go back and modify this again, and user password is password, right? From here, password. Then if the row is empty, what do we say? If row is equal to none, double equal sign, return user not found. Otherwise, we're going to return. We're going to send the user to an admin area. Okay, but before we send the user to an admin area, we're going to let me just import. So to use something called a redirect, so we could do two things. We could always return a template, or if we don't need to pass in parameters like we're doing here, there's no need to pass in parameters, we can use something called just bottle.redirect and it takes you to a route. So the reason it's giving me a warning here is that we don't have bottle. So we need to import bottle as well. And it should get rid of that error for us. If we save, should get rid of that. Okay, good. So we have that. And return user not found. Okay, otherwise, let's go ahead and create a session. So what do we do to create a session? Well, we've created a variable called cookie, and we assigned that to our session. And now what I can do is I can actually go and create any information I want inside of my cookie. I could say cookie, and I could go ahead and say, you know, like the name of the user is something. And I can get that from the information that we had earlier. I mean, I can actually get the email of the user and store that in my cookie. So now that I have the email as information, I can assign it directly. I can say Victor, you know, that could be the name of something, right? I could do a language. A language could be English, or the language could be the language of the country if you do some fancier programming, right? So all I'm doing here with logged in is I created a name, something to store in my cookie called logged in, and I just assigned anything to it. In this case, I just assigned it to 1. I have to have something assigned to it, so I just set it to 1. And then I save that cookie. So this will actually save a cookie in my browser, and that cookie will have some information, the options that it has already set, that we've set above, that it expires in 400 seconds, right? So now that I have that, we're good to go. Let me just check the syntax error. Let me save it, and we're good to go. So now what I'll do is I'll go back to my site and create a template called admin. And the admin file will just say, you're logged in. Check your cookies. If you don't believe me. If you don't believe me, right? So just any message, any template, and then what I'll do is I'll go over here and I'll redirect the user to an admin area. Now I already have some code from there, so let's explore that code. All I'm doing here is I'm routing the user to admin, okay? And I just created a function here, and then we grab our cookie information one more time, and we say if logged in cookie, return you're logged in, check your cookies. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to remove, we don't need the admin panel at this point. So let's just remove the admin panel and keep it simple for now. We're just going to return a simple statement here. And then otherwise, send the user back to, so if it finds that, it goes to admin and it finds that, you know, there's no, actually no, we do need, yeah, that's fine. So if I type in admin, it's going to find that there's no cookie installed if I haven't logged in. And it's going to return us to a different route. And so let's return them back to, or let's not even return them back to anywhere. Let's just say return you do not have permission. Let's just return that. All right, so let's go ahead and save this and let's give it a run and see what happens. Let's go back to sign in on our website. We have a lot of tabs open now, but let's just go back to sign in on our website. And let's actually try to actually sign in. Now our website crashed, which means that there's an error on our website somewhere. So we need to find that major error. Beaker middleware, what have I not done here? There's something, oh, okay. I need to add one more piece of code to the bottom here. I need to change the application to be session middleware. Yep. To actually get this whole thing started. All right, so let's give this a try again. So sign in, still getting the same error. Not liking this. Why? What is it that it's not liking? Did I not refresh my app? Okay, let's check the error log. Error log now says from bottle import bottle. Okay, so I think I can't import bottle that way. I need to import it directly. Import bottle. And I think that should do it. Let's see if that works. Okay, good. So now sign in. We had emily@emily.com. We had 1, 2, 3. It says welcome. And now let's go to should have taken us to admin. So when we sign in, it should direct us to admin. But do I have 2 sign-ins? Yeah, I do. So that was the problem. I did it on the wrong. Okay, we did it on the wrong. I did it on the wrong one. So let's remove this one and let's put it here. Okay, so let's try this again. Too many routes. Get myself confused here. So sign in. Emily@emily.com. 1, 2, 3. You're logged into a session. Check your cookies. Okay. Now I don't have a log out yet. I don't have a place where I can actually delete. But if I go and open a new incognito window, and I try to go to admin, it should say you do not have permission because I don't have cookies installed in incognito mode. It doesn't recognize cookies. And if I go back and try again, it should be okay because I have that cookie installed. But after 400 seconds, it should go away. I should no longer be allowed. So how do I do a logout? Well, logout's pretty straightforward. All it is you're just removing the cookie. You're deleting it. So under a logout route, where's my logout? All I did was just grab the cookie again, use .delete, and I did a redirect. This is a nice piece of code, a nice tag to put in your HTML. It refreshes the page after 2 seconds and sends them back to a URL. But in the meantime, it displays this message. So this is great to have as a in your HTML. Great tag to know for a simple redirect. So that's how I logged out. Hope that makes sense. And that's basically it. Now some of the other code that's in here, and I'll put this on the description so you have access to all of this code.